Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are tackling a really fundamental shift in how we think about human progress. For centuries, we've measured our success as a society by looking at just one primary metric, and that's economic growth. We looked at the factories, the production lines, the rising wealth, and we just called it progress. But, what happens when that progress actually starts destroying the very foundation it's built upon? Well, today, we're completely rethinking the entire concept of economic progress. We're going to explore why shifting our mindset isn't just, a nice idea. It's an absolute necessity for our survival.
Think about this for a second. Is a richer country actually a better country if you can't breathe the air? It's a pretty provocative thought, right? We're so used to celebrating rising national incomes and booming industries. But imagine having this massive bank account, yet you're suffering from constant respiratory issues because the sky outside your window is just thick with smog. The grim reality of these environmental health costs often completely shadows our rising incomes. It kind of forces us to ask, what's the actual point of wealth if it costs us our health and our habitat?
Okay, let's dive into this, because to fundamentally change how we view progress, we really need a solid anchor. So, sustainable development is officially defined as development that meets the needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Notice the balance there? It doesn't say we have to completely stop developing or ignore our current needs. It simply demands that we don't steal from tomorrow just to pay for today.
To dismantle that old economic mindset, we're going to use a four-pillar framework. 1. Earth as common heritage. 2. Correcting past indiscriminate use. 3. True costs of development. And 4. Redefining quality of life.
Section 1. Earth as a common heritage, an ethical compulsion.
We really need to shift our perspective here. We have to stop looking at the environment purely through the lens of commodities, and instead frame our relationship with the planet as a profound moral argument. What's super fascinating here is framing this as an ethical compulsion. It is an ethical compulsion for the present generation to guarantee the future generation opportunities similar to the ones it has enjoyed. Think about our natural capital for a moment, our stock of air, water, land, forests, and minerals. They aren't ours to just own or burn through. They are essentially a common heritage. We are literally just renting these resources from future generations, and we have a strict ethical duty to leave the property in the exact same or ideally better condition than we found it.
Section 2. Correcting past indiscriminate use, the cost of short-term growth.
Now, if we're ethically compelled to protect these resources, we really have to look in the mirror at our historical pursuit of industrial targets. For decades, we just chased short-term economic growth, completely blind to the long-term environmental consequences. Thousands of tons. That staggering number represents the amount of solid and hazardous waste produced daily in our urban areas, every single day. Organic wastes, industrial wastes, commercial wastes. We desperately chased mass production, and in return, we got thousands of tons of daily waste paired with completely inadequate disposal systems, which naturally led to disease and severe groundwater pollution.
Let's see how this all builds into a broader and honestly much darker picture. Unchecked industrialization has left us with the rapid depletion of finite mineral resources, not to mention relentless deforestation just to feed agricultural and industrial demand. We've got groundwater that isn't just dirty, it is entirely contaminated by heavy metals and toxic chemicals from industrial discharge. Our skies? Filled with carbon monoxides and sulfur oxides from thermal plants in millions of vehicles. And we're quite literally losing the ground beneath our feet through soil erosion, which sharply decreases our agricultural productivity. This is the incredibly heavy debt left by unchecked industrialization.
Section 3. True costs of development, recalculating national income.
So the crucial point is, how do we actually account for this massive environmental debt moving forward? Here is where we can appeal directly to logic and math. We have to treat it as an actual measurable expense. On the left side of our ledger, we have the illusion of growth, where we just look at a rising national income and cheer. But on the right, we have realistic growth, and that is your national income minus the costs of resource depletion and environmental degradation. Think of it kind of like a personal budget. Celebrating a high GDP without subtracting the environmental damage, it's exactly like throwing a massive party to celebrate a huge balance in your checking account, while completely ignoring the fact that you have hundreds of thousands of dollars in credit card debt. It's a total illusion of security.
The math on this is just undeniable. The depletion of natural stocks and the degradation of our environment absolutely must be treated as literal costs of development. If we want to know our growth rates in realistic terms, these environmental costs must literally be deducted from our national income calculations. Only then do we actually see the honest picture of our economic progress.
Section 4. Redefining quality of life, beyond just income.
So, if our growth numbers have been an illusion this whole time, then our definition of a good life desperately needs an update too. A high GDP per capita means absolutely nothing if our basic human needs are compromised. True quality of life requires a healthy and long life, a balanced diet, safe drinking water, clean air, and better sanitation. Notice what's missing? It doesn't say a sports car and a massive television. It lists fundamental human needs that depend entirely on citizens having access to a healthy natural environment. You simply cannot have a balanced diet if the topsoil is eroded. You cannot have safe drinking water if the groundwater is contaminated with chemical seepage.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what happens when we sever that connection. When we allow unchecked industrial heavy metal discharge, the direct result is polluted rivers and groundwater. And the human health cost? Diarrhea and waterborne diseases that severely impact our most vulnerable populations. When we look at urban emissions and thermal power plants, the direct result is increased suspended particles in the air. The health cost there? Asthma, severe respiratory diseases, and even cancer. When we use excessive chemical fertilizers to supposedly boost our crop yields, we're actually introducing toxic chemicals straight into our food chain, creating widespread and incredibly serious human health hazards.
Which brings us to one of the most powerful realizations of this entire concept. If the benefits from rising incomes are offset by the costs imposed on health by pollution, this cannot be called development. It's a false positive, right? We're working harder, we're producing more, and we're earning more just to turn around and spend that extra wealth paying for the medical treatments required because our environment made us sick in the first place. That is not development. That is societal regression. Section 5. Development for the future, the sustainable shift.
So, what does the sustainable shift actually look like in practice? Well, it starts by cementing those 4 pillars we just built. Step 1, we must universally recognize the Earth as a common heritage. Step 2, we must actively work to correct our past indiscriminate use of resources. Step 3, we have to change our math and actually deduct the true environmental costs from our development metrics. And step 4, we must redefine our quality of life based on health and environmental access, rather than just raw income. These steps stack together to form the absolute, non-negotiable foundation of sustainable development.
From that foundation, the path forward becomes clear and, more importantly, actionable. We have to focus on replenishing resources, meaning our extraction of renewables simply cannot exceed the rate at which they're naturally renewed. We must fiercely conserve our biological diversity, and we urgently need to transition to eco-friendly technologies. We're talking about a massive shift to solar energy, wind power, and using cleaner fuels like CNG and LPG instead of traditional petrol and diesel. It requires adopting highly efficient techniques and embracing sustainable practices, like organic farming, to protect our food chain once and for all.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to challenge how you view your own daily life. Ask yourself this: what is the true cost of your own consumption? And is it leaving the future bankrupt? Every single time we evaluate progress, whether it's our personal wealth or our nation's GDP, we have to remember to check that environmental balance sheet. Because true development isn't just about what we can extract today, it is entirely about what we can guarantee for tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and definitely keep questioning that true definition of progress.